In this video, I want to highlight the following. There are times as a believer, because I'm talking to believers now, I'm not talking to worldly people. I'm talking to those that are born again. There are times you need to just walk away and not deal with whatever is challenging you. Am I teaching cowardice now? No, I'm not teaching cowardice. I'm teaching wisdom here. Realize that once you're renewed in your mind, Satan cannot access you anymore. Demons can't access you directly when you are renewed in your mind. That's not possible anymore. It's over. What they can do, however, is cause unnecessary disruption, unnecessary chaos, and unnecessary danger around you. Now, chaos doesn't have to be wrong. Chaos can be good or it can be bad. But the type of chaos Satan brings is always destructive. Now, the way this happens is that Satan sends people your way to trigger you, to reveal your power. Now, as a believer, when you walk by faith, you have power because you are a living, walking powerhouse of God. That's what you are. But God doesn't want you to reveal your strength just like that. Because revealing your strength, with your strength I mean the strength you have when you walk by faith. I'm not talking about your natural physical strength. I'm talking about the strength of walk by faith. God does not want you to reveal that because it's not your strength to begin with, it's God's strength you're walking in. Despite that you are entitled to walk in God's strength, God doesn't want you to show His strength, which has become your strength, so easily. Let me explain why. Let's say, I'm going to give a parable now. Let's say that you have people, you have someone, let's say you live in an apartment complex, and you have this female resident there that's quite controlling. She always wants to mind other people's business, as they say in the world, so she wants to control everyone. And you're there and you're fed up with it. First of all, you're operating in offense now, so that's something you need to repent of because that's a dangerous place to be. But anyway, let's say one day she tries to control you openly and you put her in her place and tells her that she won't take her witchcraft. She walks away. You think, okay, I've dealt with it. Later, she begins to, now she conducts a smear campaign about you. And the people around know better. They know she's lying. She wants attention, so they shut her down. Then one day, the ambulance comes. She has wounded herself. And she's claiming that all of you there attempted to kill her. And she sent pictures of her being wounded to her friends, relatives. So now there's a war happening in the community. There's a lot of shock. And now you have some of her relatives that want to take actions against you, and those relatives know that it was you that put her in her place, but she told them that you threatened her, even though that was not the case. So now you have a whole situation against you that also harms others that could have been prevented if you just would have realized, you know what, this is a control freak who doesn't want any solutions. You know what, if she persists in this sickness, she'll persist in it alone. I'm walking away. I'm not putting up with this. I'm not going to use the strength of God to entertain a reprobate, because the reprobates want validation, whether it's positive validation or negative validation. Yes, negative validation is also validation to the reprobate. The reprobate wants you to hate him or her. The reprobate wants you to be against them. The reprobate wants you to dislike them because that means you are in the negative. And when you are in the negative, they can feed off of you. So, that was the situation that I just described in which you better could have just walked away. You would have lost, quote unquote, lost the battle, but you would have won in the long run. It's important to realize that evildoers choose their battles wisely. Evildoers don't go everywhere and start fights. They go where they can easily get an advantage or where they have some leverage to put negative attention on someone else. Because reprobates, even though they feed off of negative attention too, they don't want to be exposed. If they keep drawing too much negative attention themselves, it will be exposed. So there are times reprobates just want to put negative attention on someone else. That's their sense of getting power. So they don't just go to anyone and start fights. That's what mentally ill people do that need help. Evildoers, they become suicidal once things backfire, and then they become desperate to put anything and anyone in a negative daylight. So when you're dealing with such creeps, do not sponsor them, do not give power to them, just don't. And now I want to give an example from the Old Testament. David was a warrior, and he fought on behalf of the Israelites. He kept much danger away from the Israelites. That was a good thing he was doing. However, there was this guy, I believe his name was Nabal, but okay, you can read it in the Old Testament. He did not want to acknowledge David, even though his farm and his house was safe because of David and David's men. One day, David and David's men were tired, and they asked for bread from this farmer. This farmer refused, said, "Why should I give you bread, blah, blah, blah." He was very disrespectful to and very dishonorable towards David's men. Now David was thinking, hold on a minute. This country is safe because of me, and the loyal people with me will do the dirty job so that you're safe. And now we ask for some bread because we are tired, and you treat us like that? We're not going to take this. But Nabal's wife stopped David. This was a woman who used her mind. The woman told David that her husband is a fool for acting the way he did, and that David should not take him out lest David brings evil on himself. Because the woman was making a complaint unto David, this man is out of his mind. He knows that he owes you honor for what you're doing for these people. He knows that he has obligation to the community. He's just foolish to remain in the negative. So now he wants to smear the negativity on you. He could have just given you some bread and you would have been gone. No, he took advantage of the situation to express his negativity. Why? That's to trigger you in his negativity. Don't do it, David. And David listened. But this error of David is an error that led to many more ills in David's life. This was something in David's life that had to be dealt with, but it wasn't dealt with early enough. That's why David, when you look at his kingship, he was often involved with war. There was a time for a few weeks that he was not involved in war, and it was then that this witch and gold digger Bathsheba came and seduced him, and he fell for it. Why did he fall for it? He was exhausted by war, so he couldn't think straight. And when he couldn't think straight, the witchcraft worked on him. Now, David was still wrong. Don't get me wrong, David was wrong. Okay, I'm not defending what he did to Uriah. It wasn't only David that did it. All the other conspirators also cooperated with David, so it wasn't all David, okay? Nevertheless, David fell for it because he was exhausted by war. Why was he so often involved in war? There was a time, this was before the whole Bathsheba issue, that the king of, was it Moab? Yes, the king of Moab died. I believe it was Moab, or yes, the king of Moab died. The son took over. David was on good terms with the king of Moab that passed away. So when the son, the heir, became king, David sent ambassadors because he wanted to have good relationships with the son also. But the ministers of that king of Moab were fearful of David. They were fearful because of David's influence. So they interpreted this friendly gesture as a sneaky trick to invade Moab. And because of this, a war emerged between Moab and the Israelites. Even though it was obvious that David had no intention to harm Moab, because he could have done it a long time ago. If David wanted to harm Moab, he could have just sent an army and invade the whole country and exploit everything. He didn't do it. So David did nothing wrong to the Moabites, but the Moabites were in the negative. David didn't look at the bigger picture. If David would have looked at the bigger picture, David would have realized, okay, the father was on good terms with me. He passed away. Why didn't the son, who knew I was on good terms with his father, because the son was also there when I met the father, why didn't the son send me any ambassador saying, my father passed away, I thank you for being on good terms with that you were on good terms with my dad, let's continue. Why didn't the son initiate any peaceful relationships? Why was it David that initiated? That was a red flag already. So David, I'm not picking on David here. I'm just pointing out David. The word many times he didn't look at the bigger picture. And this was one of the errors of David that the enemy used against him. And it led to violence in David's household. One of his sons, who was the heir, raped his half-sister, a daughter of David. Then another son killed the heir. Then you had a revolt in the country. You had some of the people turn on David, wanting David dead. So for years of turmoil. Then Absalom died. So decades of tragedy came over David's household. And it's not, let's say that the thing that happened with Bathsheba was something that triggered much of the tragedy that followed. But what made that tragedy possible? David didn't outsmart the enemy. David didn't outsmart. He didn't outsmart the things around him. David was so focused on winning battles that he didn't look at the bigger picture. If David looked at the big picture, he would realize, you know what? You have all these nations around me who are hostile towards my people. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invest more and more in my people. I'm going to make sure that our financial and economic dominance is so big that none of them don't even dare to get into a fight with us. And that is what Solomon did. Solomon, who succeeded David, Solomon shouldn't have succeeded David. It should have been Adoniah to succeed David. But Solomon and his witch mom were both pagans. They overthrew the legitimate heir of the Israelites, and Solomon was made king. Okay, but nevertheless, Solomon was smarter. Solomon looked at the bigger picture. Now Solomon was a pagan. He rejected the knowledge from the Most High. He took over 1,000 wives, built temples for pagan gods. He worshipped evil spirits. So I'm not praising Solomon here, but I have to admit this about Solomon. Solomon looked at the bigger picture. Solomon realized, okay, my father David was at war most of the time of his life, even from the time of his youth. I want better. I want to have peace. I know I can't make the people, I can't make those nations be, I can't make them I can't make them accept the Israelites, but we are here. So they have to put up with us. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure that this nation, the Israelites, will exceed them all in wealth, in finances, in economic relevance. And that happened. And there was peace during Solomon's time. That was the knowledge the Most High gave to Solomon. And he used that knowledge, but once there was peace militarily, Solomon turned away from the Lord. But that was knowledge that the Lord gave Solomon. Make sure you're so relevant and needed that anyone that dares to have something against you will be ashamed instantly. And it worked. David didn't think like this. David was focused on, there's a battle, we need to deal with it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't address issues, but issues have a root. When you deal with the root, you don't have to bother with the unfolding of the issue anymore, because once you've dealt with the root and it's uprooted, healing will unfold. So, David often failed to look at the bigger picture. Solomon looked at the bigger picture. He knew he wasn't supposed to be king anyway. He knew that it was his mom, his witch mom, that used paranormal activity to put him, Solomon, on the throne. And the Lord, in his sovereignty, allowed it to happen. So when the Lord himself approached Solomon, Solomon knew, okay, I'm on the throne illegitimately, so I better behave, and I don't have much knowledge. So Solomon made plain, okay, I don't have much knowledge, Lord. He asked the Lord for wisdom, and the Lord gave it unto him. The wisdom the Lord gave unto him was that you need to outsmart negativity. You need to outsmart danger. Once you outsmart danger, danger will flee from you. So why am I recording this message? I want you to understand this, believer. You need to outsmart issues by uprooting them. Don't focus too much on the fruit nor on whatever is unfolding. If you focus on what's unfolding and you combat what's unfolding, you'll go from battle to battle, fight to fight, you'll be exhausted, you'll be weared out, and you'll become ineffective eventually. And you may even attract tragedies to you and to those around you. Look at the root of stuff. Uproot things. David didn't do it. He didn't. Solomon was wicked. Hey, I'm not going to praise that man. But the knowledge he received from God, he used it. He made sure that anyone who even dared to challenge the Israelites would be embarrassed instantly, because the Israelites were the dominant ones in the world. Financially, economically, politically, they were the dominant ones. Imagine that. You have a nation, in this case the Israelites, who were under attack since the time they possessed that land. All the time people tried to oppress them. None of them did during Solomon's reign. Solomon was smart. I'm not saying David wasn't wise. David was smart also. But David often didn't look beyond. And that's why I'm telling you to look at the bigger picture. There are some people, and this may not count for all believers watch it. There are some people you just need to let them leave. They chose to take offense at you because they're the ones operating in offense, they're the ones operating in darkness. So now they're projecting their darkness onto you. And now they want validation for the negativity they're dumping on you. So now they want to control you with the negativity they're holding on to. And because that doesn't work, they become upset and they leave. You know what? Let them leave. They're like terrorists when you look at it carefully. And I'm not using the word terrorist lightly here. When someone operates in offense and they choose to hold on to negativity, which weights them down, so it's harmful for themselves, and I want to blame you for it, not want to transfer the harm onto you, just so that they won't have to face themselves, they're operating like a terrorist. And why should you want terrorists around you? Are you going to repay evil with evil? No. But you have to be smart. They operate as terrorists. They want the harm that they're causing onto themselves, they want to put it on you so they are relieved. Because they don't want to face themselves. What's that? A lot of you have people like that around you. Let them leave. Not because you are in agreement with them, not because you condone their decision, because their decision is not to be condoned under any circumstance. Don't fight them wanting to leave. Because when they leave, that bitterness of theirs, which they're blaming you for, which has nothing to do with you, will leave with them. So the danger will leave with them. Because if they stay, they will force that danger onto you. And now you always have to fight that danger. Let them leave. They don't have the right to do what they're doing. And you shouldn't agree with them. Okay? You shouldn't. But it's better to let them leave. Because dealing with them will not be worth it. They persist in this filth. Let the filth choke them. Let them choke and perish in the filth they're persisting in. Don't focus on the battle. Lose the battle. Why would you bother losing a battle if you won the war? I mean, let's say that, okay, think about what Solomon did. Solomon made sure that the Israelites became the #1 dominant nation worldwide when it came to finances and to economics. So every nation that would have issues with the Israelites, they would they they would defeat themselves by fighting the Israelites, because by fighting the Israelites, they would fight against their own economic and financial prosperity. Or let me use another example. Let's say that, for example, this happened in history. You had the Romans, they want to take over a Greek kingdom, and the Greek kingdom fought with all they had. They used all their soldiers, and they won every battle. Every time the Romans came on land, they defeated them. But here's the thing, the Romans had enough troops to replace the men that died. Epirus didn't. So eventually, Epirus collapsed due to a low population and due to all the harm the war brought on their people. So Rome only had to endure some say Rome only had to endure the losses to win the war. So it appears as if Rome was losing, but Rome was actually winning, because the soldiers that died only revealed that Epirus was becoming weaker. Rome looked at the bigger picture. The people from Epirus didn't look at the bigger picture. So Epirus lost its kingdom and became an insignificant province in the Roman Empire, and now nobody remembers Epirus anymore, only as a symbol of mockery. I've made this video long because I want you to understand this. Focus on winning the war, then you don't have to win, then you don't have to even bother with the battles. Don't be distracted by the battles if you have won the war. Agree with Christ.